Hello everyone, Joe from Central Jersey Conrail and N-Scale. Welcome back to the Locomotive Shop. So, after a little hiatus here on the Locomotive Shop, I decided, let's get back to making some video content and having some fun. The work over there, YouTube Model Builders Live, is going along smoothly. I couldn't ask for a better situation. Andy, John, and Bill are super great people to work with. We're producing some great videos. I just wanted to get back over here on our channel and start doing some of the same stuff. I'm going to try not to mirror the stuff that I'm doing with YouTube Model Builders because I just don't want to duplicate content. So I figured let's get back to basics. We're going to start small and work up to big. So I know the last time we left off here on the Locomotive Shop, we said we were going to get to the SD50 project, which was going to be the Support the Troops logo. But I've hit some serious snags with that install, and the Soundtrack's decoder is just, you're packing a lot of stuff in that little frame, and I wasn't happy with the way it was coming out. And then also with the the work that I was doing at YouTube Model Builders, getting introduced to the ESU decoder and really getting into it here. I got 2 ESU locomotives equipped now, and I'm really loving their full throttle feature and their sound files. And you know what? I think I'm just going to shy away from soundtracks altogether. The difference is, I watched an interview on Ken Patterson's What Needs this week, and he had Mr. Hoffman from ESU on, and you can say that he works for ESU, so he's going to be biased, but you know what? He gave a real level interview, I thought, and he explained some of the difference between their product and the other competitors' products. And the big thing is, and now being an ESU user, now I see it, is that full throttle feature with the drive hold is really what's selling me on that decoder, because Soundtracks has the back EMF with the exhaust chuff, so when you release the speed and it starts to glide, the decoder feels that and it puts it automatically into exhaust. But then what Mr. Hoffman was saying, and it all makes sense now after watching it and doing all this work, is the big thing here about model rating is you as the operator know what is in those cars and what is not in those cars. That boxcar, even though the door is closed, it may have 100 tons of paper in it, and only you, the operator, knows, not the person watching or not the decoder in the locomotive. It doesn't know, it just knows that there's something behind the locomotive. So what ESU has done is it's given you the option as the locomotive engineer to say, hey, I need more power, I'm going to crank it up. So that's what the beauty of that drive hold feature is, and I've fallen in love with it. So back to the SD50, as I'm just going to scrap the whole Soundtracks. I have another chassis that I can put the shell on for the 50, and I'm going to drop an ESU board in, and then we'll do the graphics work. But I want to get back to doing small things, and we'll work up to that. So this time, we're going to be working with an Arnold U25C. There's a little backstory with this locomotive that I'm going to show you, everyone. And that is, it was given to me as a gift at Christmas time from my good friend, Matt Jones. We've become very friendly. We talk a lot, and he has his own channel, the Charleston Division, the Milwaukee Road. And, we've been talking, texting, sending stuff back and forth to each other. And, around Christmas time, he kind of just surprised me with this, and I was taken aback, so it was a beautiful, beautiful locomotive. And, right now, if you look at the Arnold, they don't really have very many U.S. prototypes on the market right now. I think this is one of 2, and this thing is exquisite. It's got a beautiful detail, and it's really based upon their European design, because Hornberry, I guess, bought them. And they used a lot of their design work from the Hornberry line. So let me tell you something. You people over there in Great Britain or London, or you guys got some amazing stuff. If this is what the quality you're dealing with, I am just floored. First of all, it's very smooth, very quiet, right out of the box. Take the shell off, and it's got this really nice lighting board that's got 3 surface mount LEDs per end. So that gives you constant number boards on, and you control the headlight independence. So it's just a gorgeous setup. And let me say, I've been watching on Facebook, and the people, I'm part of this Engage group on Facebook, and they keep saying, I'm going to chip my locomotive, and I'm just like, wait a minute, what? Chipping? I don't know what that means. And then I'm like, they must mean putting in a decoder board. But now when I see this Arnold, I know exactly what they're talking about. It's got a 6-pin on the back end of the light board. You just pull that little jumper board out and, you know, just slide in a Digitrax decoder. And super simple, like 30 seconds of install time, buttoned up the chassis, and it runs really good. So now I know what chipping my locomotive means. And let me tell you, I am so envious of you people over there in Europe that have this capability in your in-scale locomotives. It just makes so much easier. So that's enough babbling. So let's get into the project. We're gonna put in our chip, and then we're gonna button it up, and we'll do a light weathering, and we'll test it out. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get out our test track, and we're going to test the locomotive and make sure that it runs properly, no binding, no squealing, and the operation is normal. So when you first look at the Arnold chassis, it's very confusing because it's not like any other in-scale locomotive that we're used to. However, if you do open up the case in the bottom, there is a nice diagram and some instructions with some details in it. And it tells you how to remove the shell. And to remove the shell on this chassis, what you have to do is you have to remove the screws from the couplers and pull the couplers out, and it'll allow the shell to break free. I'm going to caution you, when you pull those couplers out, make sure you hold them with a pair of tweezers or hold them together, because the rear coupler on this did come apart and I had to reassemble it. So you'll see later in the video I put it in the assembly jig over there on the desk just to hold it in pieces together. Now I take all my parts and screws so they don't get lost, and I put them in the top half of the jewel case. Okay, so now we're going to unpackage the decoder. According to Digitrax website, the proper decoder for this locomotive is the DZ126IN. As you can see, the decoder is rather small. It's a small package and has everything that you need, and those are the pins that go into the socket. So now what you have to do is remove the jumper board from the stock light board, and then insert the Digitrax decoder into the socket on the board. Make sure that you orientate the decoder in the proper direction so you don't short it out. And there you go, the decoder is installed, ready for programming. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to come in here with some alcohol and engine black, and we're going to fill in these grills to give them some field of depth, just to make them look a little more realistic. I opted not to do any heavy weathering or airbrushing on this chassis because I like the way it looked and the detail level, so I just wanted to keep it, you know, a little unobscured, so I just decided to just go with weathering powders. So you're watching me do this. Let's talk about the U25C. U25Cs was made by GE. It was their first 6-axle locomotive. It was manufactured between 1963 and 1965. It had the FDL-16 prime mover and it produced 2,500 horsepower. These units that Conrail had originally were Pennsylvania Railroad units, and there were 20 of them, numbers 6500 to 6519. They were also renumbered at a later date to the 6800s. So this is a series of numbering that Arnold uses, the original Conrail numbering. So detail-wise, there really wasn't that many details that needed to be added. It actually came with the cab signal box, so I didn't have to mess with that. So now I'm just going to put the Sinclair antenna on, and that's what I'm doing here. So these were one of those peculiar classes of locomotives that Conrail actually had. They were constantly going in and out of storage. to be decommissioned. But every time Conrail needed more motive power because of a power shortage, they were taken out of storage and put back on the road. So they lingered into the mid and late 80s. So this is a very appropriate model for the era that I'm modeling for Conrail. So here I'm just making sure that the antenna is straight before the glue sets, and that'll pretty much wrap up our detail work here. So the grill work came out a little darker than I expected. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use some Bragdon Enterprises weathering powders. I'm going to use this light gray color to try and lighten up those grills and kind of make them blend more with the rest of the chassis. So most of the pictures that I saw of the Conrail U25Cs, they looked rather clean. They weren't really grubby or rusted or faded that much. There was some diesel exhaust across the long hoods towards the back. So that's kind of why I'm just going with a light weathering of Bragdon powders. So now that we've lightened up the grills and the rest of the shell with the light color powder, I'm going to come in now with the darker tones and some diesel exhaust to try and just dress it up a little bit. And I'm not going to go real overboard, but I do want to tone it down because it is a really bright blue color. I found this long, soft bristle brush. It works really well on lightening up the tones of the powders, and it kind of feathers it out. So I really like you coming in with this brush afterwards to kind of just blend it all together. So this was a rather long process. I took my time with the weathering powders to make sure to do it all together. It is, when you do the airbrush, it is quicker because you get a larger area done. When you're doing the powders, you have to concentrate more on crevices and the area, the angles and stuff. So it did take considerably longer, but the effect was more subtle and softer. So definitely a totally different way of weathering, and I like the way it came out. It's nice, a nice change compared to the other locomotives that I've done. There's the chassis with the decoder installed. As you can see, I put some weathering powder on the trucks and the tank. I didn't go too crazy, and then afterwards I'm going to clean the wheels. At this point, the decoder is already programmed to the road number, so I was able to take it over and clean it up on the wheel brush. So here we are reassembling the unit. I put it in my cradle, flipped it upside down so I could put the couplers back in. When I was trying to reassemble the coupler, they came apart. One of the springs flew out and I lost it. Luckily, I always keep spare springs for couplers, and I was able to reassemble it in the jig, and I put it right into the chassis. So everything worked out with that. And that wraps up our work. Okay, so there you go. There is the Arnold U25C. You know, after I'm saying it's maybe a couple hours of work during the day, it didn't even take me more than an evening. I didn't go with airbrushing on this one, just went with, you know, some weathering powders just to dress it up. I wanted to keep it, you know, as nice looking as possible. I also didn't get into pulling the trucks and the tank off because I don't know too much about the Arnold or the Hornberry setup, you know, because I don't want to be pulling parts out that I'm not too familiar with and ruining these trucks or these gears. So I just went ahead and just put a light dusting of powdering on the outside of the truck side frames and then just clean the wheels really good. So I think that was a safe bet. And you can see this thing is a smooth runner. Oh, it's got a lot of power. You know, it's quiet, super quiet. No gear binding or anything like that to be heard of. So very happy. And Matt, thank you very much. It's a beautiful locomotive. I really love it. So that's where we're at here. So that's all we're going to do for this time around. I'm going to just put it out this way. I'm not going to say when the next Locomotive Shop will be out, and I'm not going to say what we're going to do. I'm going to leave it kind of just free flowing, and when I get time or we're doing a locomotive, I'll put together a video and throw it up on the channel for you. And we're going to just start in increasing complicated difficulty levels as we go. So keep an eye on the channel. If you like this video, you know, subscribe to our channel. If you like the video, give us a thumbs up. Leave your comments and tell me what you think. So that's all I have for this time in the Locomotive Shop. Be sure to keep an eye on the channel. We have a lot more content coming up soon, and that's all I got for you. Thanks for watching. Bye.